Jefferson climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Come
on! We are live and we are talking touchdowns, brought to you courtesy of Run Pure Sports and Run Pure Bets. Of course, now is the time to join runpuresports.com. Use that promo code NFL23 to become a member and get all the information. But we're going to give out some of the information here today as we are previewing the AFC West. JJ, my favorite team resides in the AFC West, but I don't have high hopes for him this season. What are your overall thoughts on this division?
Yeah, I think that it's an easy division, I'm sure, for many to be like, oh yeah, another Chiefs year, which obviously makes sense. It's not like that's a crazy take in any regard, but this division should be fun. The Chargers have shown a tremendous amount of upside. They've also shown a tremendous amount of head scratchiness, whether you blame Staley or it seems like, what I love about their situation in LA. It's like, no matter what happens, for whatever reason, it's never Justin Herbert. Like I know he's like great. There's no doubt, but it's like I never hear this dude blamed for anything, like ever. It's always the coaching, the play calling, the lack of the inability for wide receivers to stay healthy. Like, and I'm not trying to make excuses for the situation. I find it so odd that the quarterbacks that people choose to blame them for everything versus the quarterbacks where they blame people around them. Speaking of that, the Denver Broncos are in quite an interesting situation this year with whole new coaching staff, and one would think that Peyton should be able to fix this offense because people were pretty high on this team coming into last year, high especially with where they ended off. And the team is similar. And if you're someone like me, Spread, who's a big coach's guy, it is hard not to think this team sees a tremendous amount of improvement this year. And yes, your Raiders are likely to be bottom feeders of the division, but I don't look at them as a terrible team either. I think they play in arguably the toughest division in football, but this division's a good one.
Yeah, it should be fun. And the two things that you said. First reason, I don't think Herbert gets blamed because this chargering has been going on a long time before he's got there, right? I mean, this is emblematic of the franchise. And I think in NBA it matters more, but ownership matters. And this guy's been notoriously frugal for years. And I think that's, why he doesn't get the same blame. It's not like he's coming into like a Pittsburgh Steelers or Green Bay Packers where they've had a winning tradition and messing things up. And two, I'm with you on Sean Payton. I think that he's going to really just run a football team right. There's a difference between knowing how to call plays and getting Aaron Rodgers in the proper situations and actually handling a football team. And, we talked about it before with the Thursday night games. When do you leave? Getting to the guy's hotel on time. Now you're the one enforcing curfew. You're not sitting in there just dialing up plays with your QB till 1 a.m. You have to be responsible for more. And maybe that's where Nathaniel Hackett fell short. Tyler, your thoughts here on the AFC West?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a good division. We got the best quarterback in the league in this division. JJ's right, and Herbert's the golden child. He can't be blamed for anything. Gets all his money. They still say nothing's his fault. And then I'm not as sold as you guys on Denver. I was all in on them last year. I thought they were going to be a Super Bowl sleeper team, and completely wrong last year. I'm not sure Sean Payton can fix it, and I also think the defense maybe takes a step back. And then as for the Raiders spread, I think we'll get into that a little bit later. I think me and you are both on the same page with how they built this team. We've talked about it for a little bit.
Pretty exciting news today, though, as we picked off Sam Darnold a bunch of times.
That wasn't Sam Darnold. That was your boy. That was your boy, Brock Purdy.
Really? He was out there? Oh, okay. Good for him. All right. But let's dive right in. And, of course, when you start with the AFC West, you start with the Kansas City Chiefs. The win total is 11.5. If I'm correct, that's the highest one on the board. The Eagles are sitting at 11. Chiefs are sitting at over 11.5. Offshore, that's a minus 124. JJ, let's start with you. I've done this for so many years. These win totals are a little weird to me because I'm just so used to everything being in 16 games increments. But they will have 17 opportunities to go over 11.5. Do you think that's a good bet, or did the book set a good line?
So it's a bet I wouldn't make. I think the number's pretty sharp. If you needed me to give you a lean, it would be a lean towards the over on this number. Again, I know it's not a crazy take. This is the Chiefs. You just look at their schedule. It's like, man, they are just not going to be underdogs in many games this year.
I don't think if you go, because you know how like certain books will allow you to bet any week right now, very, very small limits. I don't think they're underdogs in any of the games.
That's what I mean. Like you look up and down, it's like, where are they going to actually be underdogs?
It would be like in Los Angeles against the Chargers or against the Broncos, and they're not. They're
I mean, the toughest test, like they get the Bills, but they get them at home. Like they would have been an underdog in Buffalo. I'll be honest, they might be an underdog at home. They were an underdog at home last year in that game. But either way, for me, look, obviously an injury could change things, of course. No Bieniemy could change things, of course. But look, you can make the arguments that this team doesn't cover spreads, fine. But this team wins games. I don't, for me, there's no reason to not trust this team. Granted, crazier things have happened, but lean on the over. I do think that number's really sharp, though, so it's a stay away from me.
All right, Tyler. Chris Jones not reported to camp yet. Are we concerned about that at all? You're on mute.
Terrible move, but I think they'll get that contract done. I think he'll be back before the start of any games. They'll definitely need him on that defensive side, but I'm on the other side than JJ. I think I'm going to lean under here. Of course, this team could just win games, run off the wins with Mahomes. The loss of Bieniemy and some of those offensive linemen, though, I could see them maybe even taking a step back and maybe winning, say, 10 or just that dead on 11 games, not getting the 1 seed, and just having to work their way through the playoffs that way, which we haven't seen yet. They've had home field most of the times. I think they've only played, one road playoff game, technically, and one of them was a Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, in Tampa Bay. So they've always had the luck of being at Arrowhead when it comes to the playoffs. I think that changes this year. And I think they just kind of coast through the regular season. So I would lean more towards the under here. You got some new pieces coming in that they have to work in. I don't see them going full blast here.
Tyler, I've been betting a lot less tennis this summer because I've been playing so much best ball. These Chiefs receivers are available like past pick 100. What is your breakdown here when we're drafting these guys? When we're worried about Justin Ross and MVS, who would you be targeting here of all these guys?
The big worry about Justin Ross is when the doctor said back when they did his physical, I think it was last year, they said if he gets one hit the wrong way, the dude could die. So that's never something you want in a football player. I know our guy Rubio's not that big on Rashee Rice, but I think that's going to be one of Mahomes' favorite targets. They're talking about cutting Richie James in camp, which I don't understand. That's a guy that could just find the open space. That seems like the perfect wide receiver for Mahomes when he's doing his scrambling. Richie James just kind of mirrors him down the field, and he catches the ball in open space and gains about 20 yards. So the way I'd rank them, I'd go Rashee Rice 1, Justin Ross 2, as long as he can stay healthy, and Richie James 3. Tony, we all know, won't stay healthy. I consider Sky Moore a gadget player. MVS can run one route, and Kelsey will still be their main guy, but just out of the tight end slot.
All right. JJ, have you been doing any best ball drafts, and do you have any takes on these receivers who we should be targeting?
So I haven't done any best ball drafts to date yet. I typically do most of my stuff towards the end of August. I get it. Like people like to do it early, but look, people get hurt. And that
sucks. I had like 29% Tim Patrick when he went down.
Yeah, and I mean it happens, right? And granted, it's part of the variance, right? I've learned that I prefer to be as close to the NFL season as possible, so at least my guys get hurt in the season instead of before it. But I'll be honest, I agree with Tyler. I think Rice makes the most sense. A great possession receiver at the college level, showed great speed, great ability to just find the ball. And you would figure with the way this offense plays out, Tony's likely going to be in the hospital more than the field. And Richie James is just a slot guy. Like he's not gonna become like the de facto guy for this offense. So yeah, I prefer there. And on the Ross end, yeah, I'd be shocked if he made it through the season. But then again, you don't maybe more made it through the season on this team. For me, it makes sense that the problem is this offense is really never going to be concentrated. It likely isn't going to feel concentrated regardless. Kelsey, of course, but right.
But that's where it's cool for best ball, though, right? Because we can just stash these guys in like round 11 and spike week them.
Yeah. I think Rice makes the most sense, especially with how they run that offense anyway. I think the other ones are just complete flyers, obviously, except for Kelsey.
All right, yeah.
Can I interest you guys in a Rashee Rice 16-1 to have the most receiving yards as a rookie wide receiver? I mean, he could easily be wide receiver 1 there. The guys in front of him are Jonathan Mingo, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, JSN, and Addison. Not a single wide receiver 1 on that list.
Johnston should be a freak, and I'd say Addison, but we've seen some of these big time possession type receivers like Addison just not make it. Addison makes a ton of sense, but Addison's undersized, right? I think Addison's like 6 feet. Like I don't think he's a big guy.
Size, but all I picture in my head when I look at the way they're set up in Minnesota right now is he is literally Juju Smith-Schuster. The year he showed up on Pittsburgh and AB was running wild on the other side of the field. Everybody focused on Justin Jefferson, and Addison's just going to carve these defenses up.
Yeah, I can't totally mind. Johnston makes the most sense because of his big play upside to me. But yeah, I mean, a bit of a Russian roulette. I can't argue the 16-1 on Rice.
All right. Are you doing any like player bets here? I see that Patrick Mahomes is to lead the league in passing. He's the favorite right now at plus 250. Another AFC West quarterback right behind him, Herbert at plus 450. Did you have any fun props that you've targeted so far?
So not out of this division in particular. I will say though, I'm very interested on the Russell Wilson side. I do want to see what this offense looks like that third preseason game where he gets some snap counts. Not to say I'm going to go overly crazy, but I do have expectations for this offense being ran by Peyton. And I don't think it's crazy at all to think Russell Wilson has not only a bounce back year, but a great year. And we talk on this win total with Kansas City. Like if they were to land at like that 10-win area, 10-win neighbor, it's hard to imagine they wouldn't win more than 10 games or more. But let's say they land right at 10, it likely means there's other teams in this division that had pretty good years because the losses are likely to come. Some of them are likely to come from in division. And if they have 10 wins, it means what? That means they have 7 losses. Like, yeah, there's going to be parity in this division. And I think that the Broncos will talk on them when we get to them, but the most upside there. So from a props perspective, I could be convinced it's Denver props. Kansas City, I just feel like it's too murky. And God forbid they have a big year and Mahomes is able to sit a bit towards the end to keep him healthy. I just feel like there's a lot of scenarios where if you're going to back Chiefs bets, unders are likely going to be more your friend in that regard.
I would think so, right? I mean, this is not some sharp inside information that, hey, Kansas City players might have a big offensive year, right? I mean, a lot of people will be looking to do that. In fact, I think I'm not going to bet it either, but my only advice is let's say you do want a Mahomes over, bet it now. It's not going to go down, right? If you want over on his passing yards, I mean, you better bet it right now. It's not going down. I mean, they're not going to have even liability on that one.
The only extra good part with the Chiefs in particular, as far as win totals, output totals, like you look at their schedule, how it starts: Lions, Jags, Bears. I'd argue at the Jets maybe would be a tough game. I'm not big on the Jets anyway, but
I'm not either.
You look at it; it's hard to imagine they won't start 3-0, and then maybe you could start betting unders from there. Because, for them, the only game I think that's realistic that they could lose, right, would be the Jags. I mean, they would have to get really caught with their pants down and lose to the Lions week 1. Possible, of course, but Jags would be a tougher game. But and they should definitely handle the Bears. So when they're 3-0, at that point, I think you can start thinking about live betting their win total under.
And so I'm opposite. I'm the other way. I kind of like the over 11.5. So, Tyler, I'm going to go to you here. They're favored in every single game. Why is this line not 12.5?
I just think 12.5 is too high. Remember we talked about it like when they set lines, we've heard those podcasts. It's like the line spits out at 19.5. You're not getting any money on the favorite at 19.5. So you knock it down a little bit, you might be able to even the money. So I think that's why it's right around 11. And to touch on it with, I blanked out with what JJ just said with, hold on. Gotta give me a second. I got to pick back up.
Betting the under live.
Yeah, how they're going to start off 3-0.
In season, not live, but right.
Yeah, like how they're going to start off 3-0. Nobody and their mother thought that team could lose to the Colts that week last year. Yeah. They rolled into Indy and they lost that game. So I don't know if they'll get caught with their pants down as much as they just look like they're on autopilot for 3.5 quarters. And they're like, all right, now we'll flick the switch and we'll go in and we'll win this game. So I could see that happening in a couple of these games, but I don't think they get caught just flat out, pants down, blown off the field. I don't think you ever see that with this Kansas City team.
Yeah, I just think they're head and shoulders above everyone else. I like the over. Anything else on the Chiefs, guys, before we move on?
pretty much
All
it.
right, let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. I am on Bookmaker right now. They're still the San Diego Chargers to me, but it's an over 9.5, but it's juiced here. It's minus 146 to the over. The Chargers are the best video game team, right? Because they have the best assemblage of talent every year. We can't blame the GM either, right? We can't blame Herbert. We can't blame the GM. He always seems to line up a good thing, and something goes wrong. Is it Brandon Staley? Is it the bad medical staff? The multitude of injuries this team seems to have. But for whatever reason, this team cannot put it together. JJ, usually we bet on the streak, right? And the streak is that the Chargers will disappoint. I mean, is there a reason to buck that trend and expect this team to finally have a breakout year? Because they're always the darling during these preseason previews, right? I mean, we're making them. I'm consuming a bunch. And every year you're going to find someone who you consider pretty sharp to be high on the Chargers. And every year that person's pretty disappointed around week 15 or week 16 when their bets didn't go through. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, their schedule. I mean, I know that all these teams in each of their divisions collectively have similar schedules. They play the same division in the NFC. They play the same division collectively in the AFC. So all these teams have similar schedules, but there is little bits of changes in each, right? I'll be honest, out of this division, like the Chargers have the toughest schedule. The front of it's loaded. The back of it's loaded. Like, it wouldn't even be crazy to me. You look at their schedule. It wouldn't be crazy if they start out 1-6. Do I think they will? I'm sorry, 1-5. It wouldn't be. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But if they lose at home against the Dolphins, which isn't
a
crazy,
possibility.
like it's not crazy, right? You go at Tennessee, who's healthy, at Vikings, Raiders, the game they should win, home against the Cowboys, not a crazy spot where you think they can't lose. And then
and that's a road game, though, when you go by crowd noise. The Cowboys in LA.
And then at the Chiefs. I mean, these are this team's first 6 games. So, yeah, I think they're going to be live in games. I think the problem with the Chargers has been what? Their inability to close out close games. I don't know in these first 6 games which game they would be blowing out their opponents in. I mean, the Raiders would be it. Like, I don't.
But Raiders always play them tough. I mean, it's one of those division things,
it's
right?
still a division game, right? So it's not like it's like, okay, well, they're definitely going to win the Raiders game. They should, but no definite. There's no definite they're going to win the Dolphins game. Definitely no definite to win the Cowboys game. At the Titans is not an easy stretch of any kind. At Vikings,
I hate that matchup for him too, especially early in the year when Henry's not banged up. That's a terrible matchup for him.
Yeah, and then the middle of their schedule gets a little easier. They get the Bears and Lions at home, at the Jets, which granted the Jets are improved, but still. To me, out of this entire division, as far as unders go, I love this team to go under 9.5 wins. I think it would be a great year for this team if they won 10 games. Just based on this schedule, it would be a great year if they won 10 games. The back of it's loaded. The back of their schedule's backloaded with Bills, Chiefs, 2 of the last 3 weeks, at Broncos. This is not an easy schedule for a team that's proven over the last few years. They just can't consistently close out close games. So, yeah, consider me lower on the Chargers. It has nothing to do with being low on Herbert. Herbert's great. The offense is great. I think the defense has some players. But I look at this schedule and I'm trying to find 10 wins that I feel good about. And I'm actually finding 8 losses easier. So, for me, strong take on the under for this team, 9.5 wins. And you'll hear me more high on the Broncos, but for them, for the Chargers in particular, definitely on the lower side of things based on this number. So, under 9.5 for me.
I love that too, because at minus 146, the over is not a possibility, right? If we ran this and you said you like the over, I don't want to lay minus 146 on a win total, but plus 126 on the under on a bet we already like. That's how you have a nice little portfolio there. Tyler, what do you think?
No, I'm locked in with JJ here. I mean, you look at that schedule, like he said. I mean, even the games you want to pencil in, it's like, oh, they can win this one at Green Bay in the middle of November. That's going to be a cold game. We know the Chargers don't like to play out in the cold. Then they send them to New England a few weeks later, beginning of December. That's going to be a frigid game. They're not going to like that one either. So even the games that looks like they should win, they could just be in some bad spots where they lose those games. So I'm fully locked in with JJ. Give me the under here. I think they win right around 8-9 games. Herbert looks good in the offense. He throws a bunch of touchdowns with Kellen Moore there. I think they go more vertically with the offense here. You're not going to see him just pitter-patter around. I think last year, all you seen was them, they'd get the ball down within the 10-yard line or inside the red zone. And it's like 4-yard pass, 6-yard pass, 3-yard pass. Let one of the running backs pound it in from about 3 yards out. I think more this year now, you see him try and air it out to the end zone, get the Mike Williams, the Keenan Allens, the rookie Johnston involved more, and even Josh Palmer, because we know one of these receivers will get hurt and he'll slot right back in there. So they have weapons. If the offense can get hot, I could see them winning some games we don't think they could win. But I think that's the only way that they pull this off, winning 10 games, punching their ticket to the playoffs, is if Kellen Moore rolls in, the offense looks great, they're scoring, say, 28 points a game, and that they're just chugging along up and down the field.
And that's just it. And that's just it, Spread, right? Because I'll kick this to you because I'm interested in your thoughts on this team in relation to the West. But like normally in NFL, like you go on runs, right, where it's like a team that's relatively bad is playing really good, or a team that's relatively good is playing bad. And then you hope that your schedule just kind of opens up for you in certain regards. Like this team does not have 2 or 3 consecutive easy games like at any portion of the season. And it's just hard to build momentum when the schedule's not on your side. So, Spread, what's your take on the Chargers? Obviously, me and Tyler are more of the pessimistic side, if you will, or a bear market. But what's your take on them?
Yeah, I mean, Skip Bayless is going to be pissed because I know we're supposed to argue, but I'm always low on the Chargers. They always seem to be the team that has the most talent and doesn't do a lot with it. I don't like the coaching. Right, and they bring in Kellen Moore, which is great for best ball. Right. So if you're telling me you want to build a bunch of Charger stacks, I'm fine with that. I think they're going to lose a bunch of games that are going to be shootouts. I think Herbert could have a great year statistically, but you've talked about it. This team has problems at the end of the games. What's one of the big reasons? They can't stop the run. And this defense, they outsmarted themselves. Well, EPA on a pass play is 6. EPA is on a run play is 3. We'll just give up run plays all the time. Okay, well, that sucks when you're behind. Because you've designed this defense to stop the pass, but the other team's up by 4 and they can hold the ball for 4 or 5 minutes and put you in a tough situation here. Herbert should look a lot better statistically. So, I mean, if you combine, like if you want a way to hedge, go over on some of these player props. I like them a lot more than I do the Kansas City player props for the 2 reasons of Herbert was playing through an injury last year. Probably muted his production a bit. And I do think that Kellen Moore will give us an uptick in pace, which is great when we're talking about statistics. I don't know if it's going to help the winning, though, because now your defense is on the field more. So great group of talent. Don't trust the organization from the top down. Cheap owner, coach that seems to be in over his head, and just a long-standing tradition of not coming through when it counts, right?
And
I mean, Chargers are going to charge her.
And you mentioned the running defense, Spread. This team also has no running offense. Like their inability to close out a game with a small lead was also tough to watch because they can't run the football. Yeah, Eckler's got the big name, but he's really just a great hybrid back, catching passes.
He's really a slot receiver. I mean, it's like Debo.
Yeah,
how they were using Debo. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and you're not stopping the run, which means you're not getting the ball back late. And when you're not able to run the ball effectively, it means you can't keep the ball away late when you're winning. These are reasons why they can't close out games. And when, again, you take their schedule into account, it's going to be a tough season for them. And I want to be very clear. If they win 10 games, they deserve to get into the playoffs. So you would hope that they would, because everybody's resume is not the same, right? There are teams that win 12 games that have a cakewalk of a schedule, right? If the Chargers win 10 games this year, they should be in the playoffs just based on merit of their schedule.
If they bust through that schedule like that and say they win 10 to 12 games, how much chances are you giving them come playoff time?
Well, so I'll tell you this: if they win 10 to 12 games with this schedule, that would mean they would have had to have closed out some good games, which should build some confidence, not only in my ability to kind of back them in the playoffs, but them themselves, right? I think it's a confidence thing. The more you win these games that matter, the more you'll feel better in the playoffs. And there are regular season games that matter, the more you feel better in the playoffs. And let's be honest, this team consistently lost games like that. And if we're going down this hypothetical where, hey, they do win 12 games, they end 12-5, to me, they would have had to have won some close games this year that would have.
Yeah, that would mean that they shored up all the problems we talked about. That means they are stopping the run. Yeah. They have established the run, right? Maybe who's the backup there? Josh Kelly?
Yeah.
Maybe they get him involved in the Melvin Gordon role, which seemed to work so well before he got beat up and fell off the face of the earth. But They need a hardcore running back, but that's not a crazy thing to find. You're telling me the one thing I need to find is just a hard charging running back that's going to hit people. You can find that. So I'd agree with you.
It's also so slow. Like the handoffs with this team, it's like the delay. It's just a slow moving offense to run the football. And it almost looks like at the end of games, they're like just confused. Like
I wonder if Kellen Moore changes that though, right?
Because I feel like he changes a lot of that. I mean, we had a 70-year-old man calling plays there last year.
He probably will, but wait till it's week 2. Wait till it's week 2 and it's 3rd and 3, and the numbers say to run the football, and he chooses to run, and they gain 1 yard, and the fans start going, "Oh, here we go. Why are we running on 3rd and 3?" And it's hard to kind of get that paradigm shifted. Where yes, I'm okay with the play calling, and we're good. Because the reason Herbert looks so good is because he's consistently put in situations to throw the football, and positive situations to throw the football, where they're in a trail script or it's just they're in a big rundown where they're choosing to pass, which opens up more options. So I think overall, I'll be interested to see what Moore does, because Moore should call the plays. But I'm also interested, like if he was to fail in this role, obviously I don't want to talk on other divisions, but like people were sucking him off in Dallas. And like I scratched my head. Granted, Dak is a big problem out there, but I scratched my head at a ton of the play calling in Dallas. So interested to see how that ends up here. But yes, he's got a better quarterback.
Great point. He's always done well. You can't. Dallas is another team. You can't fault their GM. Yeah, he's working with a lot of talent there, and I know that we don't like Dak as far as like his ability to hit Super Bowl, but week in and week out, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. They've surrounded with weapons, and now you got a line that gives them time. Another feather in the Chargers cap, and I've already bet that under because you guys sold me on it. But if things were to go wrong, it's that offensive line staying healthy, right?
Yep.
Because we saw when Rashawn Slater fell last year, what a big downgrade that was, going from one of the best tackles in the league to where the backup wasn't even one of the better backups in the league. So if that line stays healthy, maybe Kellen Moore can do it again with a bunch of offensive weapons.
Yep.
Tyler, any player props from this team? I think that, if you're doing like me and you've bet this under 9.5, you might be able to do a little bit of a hedge, right? With some props here on the players. What do you think? Do you have any that you like?
No, definitely like Herbert's passing yards in this offense where they're just going to stretch it out more. So I think he's definitely going to get more passing yards. I really wouldn't target
that right now.
I really wouldn't target the receivers as much, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, just due to health reasons. Like you could bet those guys over, say, 900 yards receiving, close to 1,000. They look like they're going to cruise over it, and then all of a sudden they're on the bench for 4 weeks and you're dead. So I'd stay away from the receivers. I would just target Herbert and maybe some Eckler, because I could see Eckler putting up a bunch of numbers.
They got it pretty high, though. It's 44.50 on the passing yards, 29.5 on the TDs.
I like the over on the passing touchdowns more. I think he throws like 35. I think he throws like 35 to 40 touchdowns this year. And one bet I really love on this team.
Let me get JJ's thoughts on that, and then you can give out the bet. 44.50. I'm thinking I want to do his passing yards, but I think they beat me to it. This seems pretty high.
I think it's interesting, right? So I think that because of some correlation, like I think if you think the Chargers are going to lose games like I do, I think you have to like Herbert's passing yards over.
Okay.
I think that that would mean that they're in games that they're in trail scripts, or they lost games that they were playing really well, or they were down from the beginning and they were throwing all game long. I think if you, to put it into perspective, I think if you like them to win 10 games, I think you should bet Herbert's numbers under, because I think to me, that would mean you have a more well-balanced offense and your defense played a little better, putting less pressure on the offense. So I think it'll be twofold, but I do lean the props over for Herbert, just because I do think this offense is going to be in shootouts, and I do think they're going to be a lot of yardage and points late in games, as always is the case with the Chargers, where you can kind of pad stats. So yes, I lean his numbers over, just because again I don't think they get to their win total.
Another one you got to bet now. 44.50 is high. Tyler, what's your favorite bet?
Oh, there's the two to make or to miss the playoffs. They're minus 105 to miss the playoffs. I think there's a division on the other side of the country from this AFC West that can run 4 teams into the playoffs this year. The AFC South probably taking 2, and the AFC East could be another one that we could watch 3 teams.
Wait. AFC South taking 2?
Yeah.
No.
They're going to get
Jacksonville
the Titans in, and
and Tennessee.
Get the Jags in. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so minus 105 on them to miss the playoffs. I'd like that, because even if they win 10 games, I don't think they get in. So
don't you think I'm better though if I can get this plus 126 on under 9.5? Because it almost feels
I would
like
bet
the
them
same
both,
bet.
because I think you could win them both easily, but I would really hate to see them win 10 games, hook me, and miss the playoffs.
Very possible.
All right. Okay. Any more Chargers bets there, JJ, before we move on?
No. And to be honest, to be very clear, I don't love the Herbert over number. I think when you're betting numbers like that preseason, you need the guy to stay healthy.
I just don't. Yeah, that's why I don't like it. 44.50. It feels like he
threw for 4,700 last year spread, and we know he played a lot of them games hurt.
Yeah, but what if he actually misses games? He probably should have sat those games out.
He probably should have, but he still went out, looked somewhat effective. Outside of that first game, he showed up when no one thought he was going to play.
Yeah,
so I think he can cross. I think he can cross 5,000 yards this year.
Okay,
he stays healthy all year. He'll go over that number.
That's crazy. That's another where I'm old. 5,000 yards just sounds like insane.
And he just throws it at such a high clip too. Like you'll see games, it's like 54 attempts, 55 attempts, 51 attempts.
But you don't think Moore tries to rein that in?
Because that's just it.
They have the running backs to kill him.
That's just it, right? Like you could say what you want about the Cowboys, good, bad, and different as far as the production, but they did run a balanced offense.
Yeah.
The Chargers have not had a balanced offense in like 5 or 6 years. So, the added variance to this is the new staff calling plays in LA, and you could get a more balanced look from this team.
Yeah, I would say the last year they were balanced was when Melvin Gordon was there, right? And he was getting those chunks. All right. Let's move on. And JJ, this will be fun because I feel like, we're pretty in lockstep with the industry, although I think a lot of people are high on the Chargers. But the Denver Broncos, I'd say, are the most controversial team in the division. And I've heard them talk about this is a team with probably one of the highest variances, right? As far as they can win 13 games or they can win 3 games. And both of those are plausible scenarios. The plausible scenario for the high win total, Peyton comes in, he fixes Russ. We get that same Seattle Russ. They don't let him cook. They run the ball like they did in Seattle, which they have the offensive line and the backs to do, and that defense stays sharp. The other scenario is, Russ is never, that's over, right? He's past his prime. They messed up the contract. They're moving on from him. Stidham's ending up in the game. And they're in a really tough division. It sounds like you are leaning towards the former. They're over 8.5 at minus 105. JJ, tell us why you like the over.
It's a coach's league. This team has a tremendous amount of talent. Hackett was an idiot. I'm not saying Peyton being away from the game a bit, might not have some rust in certain regards. But speaking of Russ, he should be in a much better position this year to succeed. We know the weapons this team already has. That was why they were getting so much hype going into last year. But much like I said about, it wouldn't be crazy that the Chargers could start 1-5. It wouldn't be crazy that the Broncos could start 4-1. If you look at their schedule, home against the Raiders, home against the Commanders, at Dolphins, at Bears, home against Jets. I'd argue if they play well their first 2 games, which wouldn't be crazy at all, okay, they're at home both games, both winnable games. The games will both be favored in.
Denver has a huge home field advantage in September. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but there's something like 60-something% against the spread.
Yeah, and it's
high altitude and it's hot.
Yeah,
teams just aren't ready for it, right? I mean, imagine, Raiders will probably be a little more ready for it. They're playing in Vegas right now, but these other teams, they come from cold weather environment and it's hot and the altitude, that's tough.
And then
just to touch on something before you.
Yeah, go.
Sorry, dude. Just to touch on something before you go back into your breakdown. We're talking high altitude and it being hot. Wouldn't week 3 technically look like a scheduled loss to you guys then? They're going to Miami where it's going to be hot. It's going to be muggy. And the air is not going to be the same as breathing the air at altitude. Those guys might show up in Miami and just.
And they're going against Fangio, who knows that team better than most.
Yeah, that could be where they roll into the field and just look.
Miami game's definitely a game where they'll likely be sub 5, sub 6, right? Underdog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that obviously that would be the game I would mark as the loss. But the way I look at it is if they are to win the first 2 games, and that's important. Like they can't be 1-1 after week 2. They'd have to be 2-0 because they can ride that momentum into a game at Miami. Where if this team was looking for where their confidence is going to be coming into the season, if they are to start 2-0, it might be one of those things where, oh shit, this is different now this year. We are a different team. And if you can ride that confidence in, maybe they could surprise in Miami. I'm not saying they will, but even if they don't, your next game is at the Bears, very winnable game. And then you're home against the Jets, to me, very winnable game.
I mean, that's like the WWE game, right? I mean, that's going to have all the hype. They're cutting promos on each other in training camp.
Especially if God forbid the Broncos are 3-1 heading into that matchup. And let's be honest, I'm not sure if you guys have peeked the Jets schedule. They're very likely going to be 1-3 going into that matchup. In the first 4 weeks, the Jets have, I think, the Bills, the Chiefs. They're at the Broncos week 5. And then there's 2 other. I think the Cowboys are in there in their first 4 weeks. Jets do not have an easy schedule at all, especially early in the year. So it wouldn't be crazy to think you get like a 3-1 versus 1-3 matchup where the Jets are going to Denver and just a polar opposite of stories between them. It's like, wow, Denver looks like a whole different team this year. And man, the Jets have not lived up to the hype yet. So long season regardless, but the way these 2 teams start, you get a little confidence from the Broncos. I really like it. My favorite bet of this entire division is the Broncos over 8.5 wins. I look at this schedule and you can find wins for sure. And you can find even the losses you can make arguments that those will be close games. 8.5 is not a crazy number for this team at all. And to me, again, you take the talent is what it is with this group. They have a tough middle of the season schedule. But what I like about it is it's soft at the top. It's soft enough near the bottom. So I think that they could go on a run to start the year. They can go on a run to end the year. And overall, I just think with a new coach pulling the strings, big difference. This team has a lot to play for. Look, say what you want to say about the NFL. These guys have pride. Okay, that was a year where people were expecting a lot out of them as a player. People were expecting a lot out of them per player, and they did not live up to that hype. I'm sure from a motivation perspective, that whole team's got to be ready to go this year under a new coach, under a new system. And yeah, Russell Wilson's a bit dorky, but the guy, from what I saw, did show some upside last year. It just looked like he was consistently put into bad situations. I don't think that'll be the case with Sean Payton.
Tyler, I think this comes down to, is Russ fixable? Because if he is, Peyton's the man to do it. What do you think?
I'm going to start to lean towards the sides of no spread. We're talking about a quarterback who had a bad thumb injury on his throwing hand that he broke. Ligaments were torn in there. He hasn't looked the same since. But another big thing that no one's really talked about, this is a quarterback that did 90% of his damage outside the numbers, trying to stretch the field, get these guys catches on the sideline and go right out of bounds. With the way these defenses play nowadays, those throws just aren't there. He's never been a middle of the field kind of quarterback where he just pelts guys, sneaks them into these little windows. That's what a lot of these defenses are going to funnel him down to doing, and I don't think he can do it. So I think maybe halfway, 3/4 of the way through the year, they just kind of go, all right, Stidham, let's see what you got, and they put him out there. I also think the defense, they were ranked second in DVOA last year. They were a main reason why they were in 90% of these games last year, because the offense couldn't move the ball, but their defense wasn't giving up any points. Defense is probably the hardest thing to replicate in this sport because the offenses get better. They get film on your defense. They've moved some pieces on this defense also. I don't think they're going to be that same great unit they were last year. So I think it's going to be tough for them. I don't think Russ is fixable. If he is, it's going to be a guy like Sean Payton that could do it, though. So it's going to be a prove it to me season with them after last year where I was all in on them and they just shit the bed.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I really think that's what it comes down to. And we go through the depth charts and go to the schedule, but a lot of times in the NFL, it just comes down to the quarterback. And if Russ is that old guy, this Broncos team is going to be the force that we were kind of expecting last year, right? We were calling this the greatest division of all time and things of that nature, which obviously did not turn out to be true. So Sean Payton's got his work cut out for him. But I'm kind of leaning with JJ here, Tyler, because number one, I don't think Sean Payton would take the job if he didn't see stuff that he was already planning on fixing. And I think that what happened was you gave the guy too much power, right? I mean, you basically let him be the coach. Yet, alienated himself from the teammates. I think that now with Sean Payton actually running this like a football team and not an NBA team, because I was getting some real NBA vibes from the way they were letting Russ just control everything. That we'll be back to a proper NFL.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Sean Payton, great coach, won a Super Bowl, but do we consider him one of the guys that's just elite of the elite of coaches?
Yes, I do. And
I think from an offensive perspective, it's hard to ignore what he's gotten out of players that he shouldn't have gotten out of. Like Drew Brees was
that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be like the Belichick Brady thing all over again, right?
Yeah, at least Brady, when you look at Brady, physically, at least he fits the mold of a nowadays typical quarterback, 6'4", 230. Like Drew Brees was barely 6 feet. And the fact that he was able to keep him this long in the league, and there was a part where Drew Brees was also throwing ducks his last few years. Just the fact that he was able to keep him relevant and all the credit went to Brees, and obviously a great quarterback. But I do think that if Peyton can kind of replicate that in Russell Wilson in any capacity, you're just going to see a different version of this group offensively. Now, defensively, you hope that they don't take steps back because they do have some talent defensively. But, time will tell. They play in a high-scoring division, so that's part of it as well. But I would just be hard-pressed to believe that this team is once again the bad part of this division, because Sean Payton was keeping the Saints relevant with no talent, especially in his latter portion of New Orleans. He's got a lot of talent here. So we'll see what happens, but definitely high on this team. Like the talent, like the coach. We'll see.
Tyler, when we're talking about Sean Payton being elite, which coaches do you think are better than him? Because I think it's a short list.
Yeah, I think it is a short list the more I think about it. I mean, what are we thinking? Mike Tomlin, Belichick.
Of course, right?
Defensive-minded coaches. Yeah. I mean, that's Spread's boy. We always got to start off.
Yeah, he already knew I was going to say him, so he just had to put that on there. Yeah, but you got Tomlin, Belichick, Reed. Who else would you like more than Reed?
I'm not going to consider not going to consider the McVays. Yeah, I mean, I guess he would be up there. The more I see it too, is I just picture a guy who didn't want to coach that Saints team. He's seen where they were going, knew he couldn't get out other than just retiring, and sees a free, wide open door to a team that was just in shambles, that he knew he could just slide in and they'd be like, we'll take you at whatever cost.
But I don't think he would do it if he didn't think he could fix it. I don't think he's taking the Raiders job.
No,
I don't think he's leaving TV to go work with Jimmy Garoppolo and the last couple good years of Devontae Adams. I think he sees, hey, this is a Super Bowl winning quarterback who basically we treated like an NBA player. And now we see that doesn't work in the NFL, right? You can't just
good luck breaking him out of those habits, Spread.
Oh, I think he's going to, though. I think he's going to. Pete Carroll didn't let him do stuff.
He'll be doing high knees down the aisle on the plane while Sean Payton's trying to tell him the game plan.
Oh, let's hope that doesn't happen. JJ, have you ever done high knees on a plane before?
Negative.
Okay. I think maybe I'll have to bust that out next March.
But it goes back to, right? He's a corny dude, so it is what it is. But Sean Payton should be able to tighten that ship. And again, they have the opportunity to start the season with some confidence-building wins based on the schedule they were granted. So we'll see. Much like I said,
one thing to say about that, though, the Raiders always seem to beat them.
Yeah, they definitely could. Obviously, a new sheriff in town on the Denver end. But like I said about the
Chargers, know how the Jags always beat, I think it was the Titans, even though they're terrible.
I mean, much like I said with the Chargers, if they win 10 games, they deserve to make the playoffs based on their schedule. To me, if the Broncos don't win 8 or 9 games, to me, this would be a failed season. You have talent. There's no reason this team can't win 8 to 9 games under Payton. And people might look at it as an improvement, maybe if they win 7 games or something. No, this is a team that's literally built the same way it was last year, and people were super high on them. They had one bad year with one bad coach.
What's the big change? They lost Bradley Chubb. I mean, that's about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest piece is the coach. Obviously, Chubb was great, but replaceable in my eyes. What do you have? Maybe 14, 15 sacks, I think. He was also hurt a few games.
How do we think their running game does?
I think what we've seen with Peyton later in Breeze's career, like he was literally sitting on the ball. Like I would expect this team to be running the football. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I know that Williams is going to be out, right, for the first few weeks.
I think he might be back. He's practicing in full whenever.
JSU hopes so because I think he drafted him in like 60% of his leagues.
Yeah, if he's healthy and
JSU sucks him off more than great. He's a great back. But my lord,
well, I think it's just he was going in round 9 or round 10, but that's gone now. He's in round 7 now, which
makes sense. I mean, at that point, if he was going that deep, it makes sense, right? Because if he's able to play, Sean Payton has proven he will feed running backs. So, like that. And yeah, like I said, to me, out of every team, there's really 2 teams in particular I'm very interested in. I'll call it 3, but one is the Jets, and I'm interested in them in a negative way. One is the Broncos. I'm interested in them in a positive way. And another is going to be Washington, who I'm actually interested in a positive way as well. But the Broncos and the Jets are the 2 most distinguished teams for me this year, both in one direction and the other. We'll see how it plays out.
Tyler, not to go too far off, but I'm down on the Jets too. When we do that preview, are you going to be on the opposite side?
As they made all the offseason additions and you watch the roster fill out, it was like great defense. He's bringing in all his receivers. I guess it's Tampa Bay all over again. And then you looked at the schedule, like JJ said, and it's like, oh, this isn't going to be a fun ride for the first 6 weeks. This could be ugly.
And also, like you said, the defense doesn't always carry over from year to year. Yeah, it seems to be almost random.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm hoping the Jets are going to start 1-5 or 1-4. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I hope it does. I'm actually praying for it because I want to see those press conferences, where Rodgers is like, we're still figuring things out, and the young team, we're getting through some things. I don't know. I'm going to go on some retreat in the mountains, and maybe there'll be some answers for me out there. I'm just so sick and tired of listening to this dude, make excuses for everything. He's had pound for pound the purest arm talent we've ever seen in the sport, and he has 1 Super Bowl ring. It's frustrating the arrogance that comes out of him despite 1 ring. It's not even a compare. People that compare him to Brady are just ignorant at this point. The dude has some problems, and if you watched last year, a ton of the tape last year, 3rd and 3 or shorter. Name me any quarterback that threw half as many balls 40 yards downfield on 3rd and 3 or shorter than Aaron Rodgers. I just don't know how that tendency is just going to magically go away this year. We shall see. But and again, I live here in New York, so I get to hear it all around. But you're not getting 28-year-old MVP Aaron Rodgers. And granted, in 2021, he had a great year overall, considering. But you're not getting 28-year-old MVP, Super Bowl winning Aaron Rodgers. You're getting 39-year-old by the time the season's over, Aaron Rodgers. And last year, he had a lower QBR than Matt Ryan. So
and Brady has people messed up. Nobody's supposed to be playing sports at this age, right? I mean, you got to go back to some guy named George Blanderson, right?
I just don't get it. People watched every game last year in their own capacity, right? You watch every game and you're like, Tom Brady's washed. The dude needs to retire. I'm sick and tired of watching this dude. He finished 10 players higher in QBR than Aaron Rodgers last year. Aaron Rodgers, who, like I said, Matt Ryan had a higher QBR. And now people are sucking each other off that Aaron Rodgers is now in New York. Meanwhile, people are so happy Brady finally retired. I just don't understand it. I don't understand the slander towards Brady, the love for Rodgers. The numbers are what they are, and it's he's got a tremendous amount of arm talent. He's just it's almost felt like it's been wasted. And now he's got talent around him offensively. We'll see. And not to go down a rabbit hole with the Jets for an AFC West preview show, but
that's what we have to do because we're probably not going to have you on for AFC East, and people just want to hear us talk football, right? It's not like we start talking about our favorite place to get a caramel macchiato. Tyler, anything else here on this team? Do you have any player performances that you're targeting?
No, I just
you're down on Russ. Let me see if I can find his reception or his passing yards.
I just wanted to touch on that Rodgers thing that JJ was just talking about. I think a lot of people still buy in on him because you've watched the dude 2 years before Jordan Love got drafted. Everyone was out on him. Everyone thought he should retire. They draft Jordan Love. It's like the dude walked in the building, flicked the switch. He was back to elite status for a couple years. Last year, they trade his best buddy and his main wide receiver. He looks like he's not all that interested. Now he's back somewhere where he's motivated. I think he might try and flick that switch again. Now, can he? Is the big question. If he flicks the switch on that team, that offense could be lights out, but I'm not sure 39-year-old Rodgers can do that again. He's going to try.
We'll see. Just know that if they do start 1-4, I'm likely going to have his post-game press conference on Vine at my house, just watching it on replay.
Not going to be in the background.
Laughing my ass off at every complaint he has. Can't wait.
There might be people watching that don't even know Vine, JJ. It's been gone for that long. Tyler, speaking of you being down on Russ, he's at 3,700.5 in case he lands right on there. I don't know why we have to do the half yards on this, but they did. Minus 120 for the under. Is that something you're interested in, or is there any other ones you were looking at?
That just seems way too low for a quarterback that if he plays 17 games, like 3,700 yards. Like he should be.
That has to be factoring in the fact that he might not make it.
I think it's factoring in that. I think it's still factoring in how bad he looked last year. Like for instance, if you're on JJ's side and you think they're going to look good and you think Peyton's going to fix them, that's a hammer spot to the over. I think 3,700 yards in a Peyton offense with good receivers, he should easily throw for 4,000 yards.
All right, Corey says you're going to have to cry when the Jets are 4-1, JJ.
I tell you what, if they're 4-1 with those first, actually really the first 4 games are the big ones, but let's say they're 3-1 after their first 4 games. Look, God bless them, because they're likely going to be in for a massive season if they start 3-1 with their first 4 game schedule.
You are not going to say any sports radio if that happens.
Super Bowl bet for you?
If they start 3-1, definitely muting my radio when I'm in my car. It's going to be listening to my thoughts. Not watching any post-game interviews or press conferences. But look, we'll see. I think that the Jets certainly have the talent to do it. I think it's going to be much like I said with the Chargers. If the Jets win 10 games, 11 games, they deserve to get to the playoffs. They have a very tough schedule, arguably the toughest in all of football if you look up and down their schedule.
Tyler, a stack to do in best ball that's kind of easy is to get Sutton, Dolchich, Russell Wilson. I mean, these are all late round guys. I mean, you could just draft for fun and then still build that stack later. And there's a guy named Mims that they drafted. Who do you like when we're targeting? I know you don't like the team, but just bear with me here. Who would you target there with some of these best ball drafts, considering where they're drafted?
I mean, touch back on the running backs. Javonte Williams would definitely be my favorite. I'm going to jump.
Even still, like in the 7th round now, where he's going around like Dameon Pierce and DeAndre Swift.
If he's going to play spread, he could be like a top RB. Like that could be your RB1 on the team. So I would say him first. I'd say Sutton second. They said Sutton's one of Russ's favorite targets in camp. He's looked good. And I also don't trust Jerry Jeudy. He's like, when you just look at him, his frame, his stature, the dude's built like me. If I get hit once on the NFL,
he's going too high.
I ain't getting up, and he doesn't get up half the time. So I don't really like the way
I don't like his range either.
Yeah. I think he's an elite route runner, but I just don't like everything else about him. So I more trust Sutton. And we know Russ loves his tight ends. So Dolchich, and it's in a Sean Payton offense. We've seen the tight ends get utilized a lot there. Mm-hmm. So I'd rank them Javonte, Cortland Sutton, Dolchich, Jerry Jeudy.
I've been grabbing some P. Ryan. Do you think he's got a chance to have a big year? Of course, I think he's better on DraftKings where you get the full point PPR.
I think he could definitely have a big year. I mean, if you see Javonte go out, he doesn't look the same, or if he gets hurt again, P. Ryan could easily step in and be an RB1. I mean, we've seen him play when Mixon was hurt. We've seen what he did in college. I mean, the dude holds the record for the most rushing yards in a college game. I think he ran for like almost 500 yards. So he could definitely take the workload, and he can catch out of the backfield, which we know Russ loves to dump it off too. So P-Ryan could definitely be in for some work on this team.
I like him. You can get him around round 10. And like I said, you can just build that stack like on the back half of your draft after you just grabbed premium players for the first 6 or 7 rounds. JJ, any more thoughts on the Broncos? And this will be fun because we can go back to this where, you, I, and Tyler are disagreeing here.
Yeah, no, nothing else to add. I've never really been a big season-long prop guy just because I play so much DFS. But I think the Wilson overs make sense. I just think, again, when you talk season-long player props, it's like you need them to stay healthy. And it wouldn't be crazy that these dudes get hurt and your bets are dead as soon as a guy gets hurt for 3 to 4 weeks. So, I don't love it. Season-long props, especially here, but the win totals for Denver, I think, make a ton of sense.
All right. So over 8.5 for JJ. Tyler thinks Russ is done, and not even the great Sean Payton can turn that around. So we will see. And like I said, I think that's a fun one because that's the one with a lot of variance. Most people think the Chiefs are going to be good, right? It's pretty hard to find a podcast where someone's telling you the Eagles are going to suck this year, right? I mean, but I've heard Denver all over the place, right? I mean, there's people that just are stacking them left and right in best ball, and then people who refuse to draft them because they're worried that Stidham's going to be running the show by week 8, and Peyton's going to say, "Hey, I tried with this guy. We got to get rid of him," and try and bring in one of those top young quarterbacks. So. Speaking of disappointments, let's go to my favorite team, the Las Vegas Raiders, over 6.5 plus 129. So they put this at 6.5, and people are still betting under. JJ, we brought one of I think he's the most underrated quarterback, Jimmy G. And now, we get to find out, was it the system or is the guy really a winner? Because everyone says, well, anyone could do that. With Shanahan. And I was telling you what, when we were doing the shows last year, right? As the season went on, it was kind of hard for me as the Jimmy G truther when Brock Purdy came in there and looked even better in that offense, right? Kind of was giving credence to what Tyler was saying. Hey, it's just a system. Shanahan puts these guys in position to succeed. But Jimmy G does have experience with Josh McDaniels. Second year under Patrick Graham. You like to think that the defense is going to improve. A little worrisome, though, that their first-round pick hasn't played at all. When you draft a guy at number 7, you would hope that he'd be able to come in and make an impact right away. With him missing all those training camp reps, I think that's rough. Maybe indicating to me that this team's fine with losing. You did it for the press. You get a guy that's going to play great for 3 games and then get hurt, and you can roll out Brian Hoyer or who's the other guy, Aiden O'Connell. And lose a bunch of games and grab a new quarterback. I'm not sure what to make of this Raiders team. I'd say probably the best argument to bet the over is that it's never this easy and it's never this obvious in the NFL, right? And these teams are never as bad as we really think they are. But obviously I'm biased as they are my favorite team. What are your thoughts here on the Las Vegas Raiders, JJ? The total, regular season win total, 6.5.
So I'm not a Jimmy G guy at all. I think he's going to have a terrible season. I think above all else, he is someone who sat behind Brady for years. When he got his chance, played a little with McDaniel, then got a bigger chance in San Francisco and got Shanahan. He's just had masters of their craft calling plays for him. And now he gets Lombardi, which sounds worse than, I guess the way I said it sounded worse than it is because Lombardi's not bad, but I feel like Garoppolo had all the opportunity in the world to play very well in San Francisco and just never did. Yes, he wins games and yes, he's played well, but let's be honest, he was playing a few games for the Patriots when they were practically towards the end of a dynasty. He then goes to the 49ers who have the best defense in the league. Offensive weapons everywhere, great play caller, and he just looks like an average quarterback in that system. Now he goes to LA, a team that's been losing for years. So this is going to be a big step up for him in terms of what he's used to, the environments he's used to playing in and now playing in this one. We say this all the time, right? You kind of end up adapting to your surroundings, whether it's the people you hang around or the places you frequent often. He is now in a different type of surrounding area in LA. In Vegas. And it's just hard for me to rationalize his success. Team has no defense. He's going to be tasked to throw the ball more than he ever has in his career. He's a turnover machine. He was a turnover machine, and he wasn't even throwing the ball a lot. He had tremendous playmakers around him. He has Devontae Adams, sure, but just worth noting, I think an hour or so ago, he was limping off the field today at practice.
Yeah.
Not that it's anything serious.
I don't think that's a big deal, though.
Yeah, but likely not anything serious, but worth noting. I think overall, I struggle with this team in terms of how they're going to do well. It would have to be something really crazy for this team not to finish last in this division. And then you look at how their schedule starts: at Broncos, at Buffalo, Steelers, okay, fine, but at Chargers. Then they opens up a little bit for them. But look, I'm a McDaniels guy, but I don't know how much influence he has on the play calling per se. At least when he was in New England, McDaniels was calling all the plays. I just find it hard to team's got a bad defense. I don't trust the quarterback. Devontae Adams is going to have to feel like a hero. And Abe, I'm not questioning the fact that Jimmy G wins football games. I'm questioning that, can Jimmy G win football games when the surrounding pieces around him aren't very good? And yes, he has Adams, but nothing else on that team is noteworthy. And he's come from some serious teams. And I love that ESPN keeps flashing that stat. Jimmy G's a great quarterback because he wins 70% of his games. Yeah, wins 70% of his games, the best defense in the league behind him and the best run game behind him. And he has neither this year. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a big test to Garoppolo. You drop a talented guy in a shitty situation. We're really going to find out how good he actually is at the position, because this is going to be the telling year for me in terms of Jimmy G. And spread above the loss, Tyler, I'm sure you'll give your takes, but I'm very interested in what you think, Jimmy G, what we get out of him. Obviously, you've been a fan of this team for a long time, so I'm interested in your takes as well.
All right. Well, Tyler, let me throw something to you real quick. In defense of Jimmy G, last year he was in the top 5, and this isn't in red zone. This is from the 10 yards and in, and he was about 60% completion percentage in there. Derek Carr at the bottom of the list in the 30s on his percentage. So say what you want about him, but the red zone, which was huge for Carr, who puts up great stats but doesn't get those touchdown numbers, because he wasn't getting it done in the red zone. If he can get it done in the red zone, things could happen. But my guess is you don't believe in Jimmy G and the Raiders either.
No, I mean, we talked the other day when we were doing a best ball draft spread, and I think it made a lot of sense what you said. Is this team kind of like tanking behind the curtain? Injury-riddled quarterback they bring in who could barely pass a physical. They never sign a backup for him. They're one deep in a lot of positions. They just said, Josh McDaniels, you keep coaching, you keep doing your thing. Looked like he lost the locker room towards the end of last year. Like, it just looks like it's like, oh, Jimmy G's ankle's busted. Now we don't have a quarterback. Oh, we're picking top 3. We don't know what happened this year. Like, it just seems like they kind of put themselves in that boat. I don't like when you call Jimmy G underrated. How underrated can a guy be after we watch just San Fran just look up into the stands and just pull guys out and say, you want to play quarterback? And everybody that's went in there throws into the same windows. So I'm not sure he's underrated as he just played in an easy system. I think all 3 of us could be quarterback for San Fran.
It's a good point. It's a good point from Tyler, though, right? I mean, you think about it. How could a quarterback be underrated when practically an undrafted free agent who's barely 6 feet tall steps into his role and looks like an awesome quarterback?
It was tough for me as a Jimmy G truther. He looked better because he was making plays on the move when things were broken down, right? Jimmy G was just executing the system properly.
Yeah.
When Purdy started extending plays, I said, this is terrible for all my Jimmy G takes on the show, because he not only is he doing what he did, he looked better doing it.
Yeah.
Yep. I also think you could see Devontae Adams like halfway through the year. He gets all vocal. He's demanding a trade right before the trade deadline. I mean, the Jets didn't clear all that money for no reason, and they didn't give it to Dalvin Cook yet. So I could see him demanding his way out. He really has no reason to be there anymore. He left Green Bay to go play with his college buddy and Derek Carr, and now Derek Carr's a Saint. So he's just kind of hanging out there by himself. I think he demands his way out. And after that,
is it a contract year? Is it a contract year for Adams? Any chance? Is it a contract year?
No, he has one more year after this. One thing, though, Tyler, he grew up in Fresno, and he grew up a Raiders fan, so.
I mean, maybe he stays. I just think the guy wants to win. Like, I think he demands his way out.
I don't think he demanded a trade more than just not play because of a minor injury.
I think you see other guys do that. I think maybe you see like a Max Crosby. He's like, I'm banged up.
He won't do that. He's not built like that.
He's not, but if he sees we're winning 2 games this year, why ruin your body when you could just get healthy and come back next year with a maybe better roster? They have their first round pick next year too, so it's like if you're a 1 to 3 pick, you're gonna get a quarterback next year. You don't have to worry about the backup taking over, Jimmy G still being there. Like, they could start fresh next year. I think this is a full rebuild year for the Vegas Raiders. And when we did that, the schedule pick'em spread, I had them finishing 1-16. They're winning 1 game this year. So as for their win total, Give me some alt unders. Give me the under 3.5 at plus 450. Give me the under 4.5 at plus 220. I don't see this team winning many games. And if they're going to win them, they're going to win them early in the year when Jimmy G's healthy.
And if Adams is to stay healthy, and obviously he's already dealing with a little minor stuff, but if he is to stay healthy, this, regardless of how Jimmy G performs, this should be a massive year for Adams because
he's falling in the ADP too.
Yeah, Jimmy G. Look, I might doubt Jimmy G as far as his ability to lead a team, but he will force feed Davante Adams. Like, there's just no doubt about it. Like, there's no doubt about it. Who else is he going to go to on this team? Who else is he going to trust? It's hard to imagine he just develops all these rapports early with everybody else. So Adams makes a ton of sense to just absolutely nuke this year. If he does stay healthy, proper game scripts, his team will be trailing in almost every game. It should be a huge year for Adams. That was what I asked about the contract year, because he'd have enough motivation then to just, pile up the scoreboard, which again will make Jimmy G look good. I just feel like they're going to be trailing in some games, many games possibly because of Jimmy G, and he'll have the ability to bail out his own stat card late in games. But we'll spread. Let's kick it to you. It's your boys. What do you think?
I want to be optimistic, and it's kind of like because there's two kind of running bits on the show last year, right, Tyler? To me, Mike Tomlin was the greatest quarterback, and Jimmy G didn't get the respect that he deserved, and that you can point to the other quarterback stats, like Herbert has better stats except for one, the win column, right? And Abe talked about that winning percentage too, and I'll even go back to the year, because I lost money on this game, so I remember it. The year that they moved Trey Lance in, right? And Trey Lance gets hurt in that week 2, and they're losing the game. And Jimmy G comes in and watching it, and I wasn't out there, right? But it felt like the offensive lineman and everyone kind of got a little more jazzed up. It felt like, they believed in him. Right? He's the prototypical quarterback, right? The offensive linemen don't want a quarterback that's getting less girls than they are, right? They want the guy out there that's like, kicking it with porn stars, hooking them up with women, right? A great guy to be around. Humble, right? They talked about another great thing that endeared him to his teammates when he was going through all that stuff with Trey Lance, and they didn't quote unquote want him on the team. He would show up and work by himself. Never.
You're gonna hate this take spread. Like, I think Jimmy G is just Sam Darnold with better coaching around him. Like, Sam Darnold has been coached by the Jets, has been coached by the Panthers, and he's had a tremendous amount of arm talent. I would argue if Jimmy G.
But I think the decision making from Jimmy G is better. For example, Jimmy G's out here banging the porn stars and he doesn't get STDs. Sam Darnold gets mono at a bar. So it just shows. Jimmy G, just higher caliber of decision maker there.
But I will tell you this: I will definitely eat that L. Same way I'll eat the L with the Jets if they are to have a big year with their tough schedule. If Jimmy G is to me, if this team wins 7-8 games, that's an amazing season from this team, all things considered. I just don't understand rationally how overnight this guy will go from some of the best systems in the sport to almost the exact opposite. And in the best systems in the sport where he looks like an average quarterback to a bad system. And even if he looked like an average quarterback, that would be.
I think the offensive system's good. He's got weapons, right? The Michael Mayer kid from Notre Dame, even if he doesn't put up a good year statistically, supposedly just a beast in run blocking. Here's another thing for Tyler's thing, though, right? Josh Jacobs not reporting to camp. That kind of shows you, right? If they felt like they were on the door, or they might pay a little extra more, right? If this was an all-in year, they might eat the bad contract. Hey, we can't afford to lose this guy, Josh Jacobs. Another sign to me that they're saying, hey, we don't mind. And Tyler, I looked today, 70% Zamir White on my underdog right now. So, and my idea there was that even if Jacobs does come back, which I think he will, I think he'd be a fool to turn down all that money. I don't like when these guys miss training camp. Even with Davante Adams getting banged up today, I'd rather have him out there. Get your body ready for it. And I think that's going to be tough. JJ, I'm actually higher on the offense than you guys are, but I still think we're going to lose a ton of games because I just don't think that this defense can get turned around. And we talked about the Rams, right, Tyler? And you were saying, hey, if they didn't win that Super Bowl, they're a dumpster fire. I almost feel like the Raiders are in the same situation, except they just didn't trade their picks away. They just missed on them all, right? But it's almost like the Rams roster where it's like you don't have a first-round pick from the last 5 years on your team. It's really hard to compete when you're basically just throwing away draft picks every single year. I mean, in hindsight, that the Khalil Mack trade could have been okay if they would have nailed those picks. But
yeah,
get Josh Jacobs
Mayhawk
and Damon Arnett.
Mayhawk got every single one of those picks wrong, didn't he?
I mean, the best one was Jacobs, but we've already seen that getting an impact running back. He was what, RB1 in fantasy last year, and the team was terrible. So, yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily correlate to winning. So I'd love to be high on this team, but unfortunately I can't, because even if Jimmy G has a good year, I don't trust the defense to be good. And even if Jimmy G starts off good, I don't really think that he's going to stay healthy. And
I don't think it's possible to be high on a team that lost to a Jeff Saturday coached Colts team last year on
that's the other thing. I think McDaniels isn't a very good coach either. He might be a Hackett where it's like, hey, the guy can call plays, and but when it comes to being the overall leader, it's completely different skill set.
He's been proven. He is a very good offensive coordinator, a very average at best head coach.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of those in the league, and Hackett might turn out to be that this year, right? I mean, if the Jets look great, I mean, on offense, all of a sudden he's going to get the credit.
That's also an interesting dynamic too, obviously, because Rodgers has his own arrogance there as far as what the play calling and whatnot's going to look like. So interested to see how that whole dynamic plays out there, because Hackett's got a lot to prove. There's a lot of motivation there for him. I'm sure that had to be a tough.
And Josh does too. If they go under this year, he's never getting another job. I mean, he might not even get fired, but it's just hard to see them being able to turn it around. And if he doesn't succeed here, I can't see another team taking a chance on him.
Yeah.
Tyler, any player props or anything else we should be looking at when we're betting on this Raiders team?
I mean, if you could find Josh Jacob unders, I would bet those, because just like we talked about,
they're not putting those up.
When and if the dude shows up, he's going to get hurt when they give him the workload. So, yeah, if you could find the numbers, bet the unders, but good luck finding them.
They're not even up because they don't even know if he plays week 1, and think how much that changes. Like, even if he says, I'll just do 2 games, I'm not going to throw away all the money, but I'm going to sit out 1 or 2 games. I don't know if that affects the Raiders' win total, but it would obviously affect his numbers a lot. JJ, anything that you were targeting for the Las Vegas Raiders?
No, nothing in particular. I will add, though, this team has the ability to tilt me starting as soon as week 1. If somehow Jimmy G plays really well and they go to Denver.
Bro, I wouldn't be surprised. They played Denver really well. Let me look. I think they've won like 7 of the last 8 games.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if they roll into Denver and win handedly, and Garoppolo, throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Wilson has like 2 picks, and gonna be an early fist up my ass to start the year. But I can't see it. I don't. Jimmy G would very much surprise me if he has a good year this year. It would, because I just don't know where anybody would be rationally getting that from if it's not just randomly spec'd optimism. Just look at the data. Like it's like
so the Raiders have beaten the Broncos 6 times in a row and are 8-2 over their last 10 against the Broncos.
Yes, definitely.
That's what I'm saying. I'd be worried if I were you. I also think they get a better. I think it's worse for them though going out there at the beginning of the year. I would have rather caught them in October or maybe a little later, where you don't have the combination of the.
I think these two teams are a little different. I think these two teams are a little different perspectives, though. In the Vegas area, you had the Gruden days. You had Denver trying to figure themselves out, and Denver might still be trying to figure themselves out. But this is basically as formulated a team Denver's had in some years now, especially with the better coach. So. I'd argue it's a bit apples and oranges, almost like kind of saying, Alabama's beaten Georgia the 3 of the last 4 years. It's like, it's college, and there's different players all over the place now. I think Denver might have totally different players, but they have a brand new quarterback in Garoppolo, who I'm not a fan of, and then you got all these extra addeds on the Denver end. Long story short, if the Raiders roll in there and just torch Denver week 1. My season's going to
That's so funny. Even if they win that week 1, I'm not high on them for the year. I almost want to go bet their win total right then, when it moves to 7.5. Because
for me, it
just doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah, for me, it does spoil some things, though, because Washington should have a better year than last. And you lose this first game if you're Denver, then you go to the second game in Washington, and you get caught with your pants and lose that game. Now you're going from potentially 2-0 to now 0-3 with your next game heading to Miami. That first game is a very pivotal win for Denver. If they want to make the playoffs, I think you got to start out with that division win at home against the team that you should beat.
Yeah. So it's not often that they mean so much, but I think that you're right. That is one of the most meaningful week 1 games. For example, if the Chiefs win their first game, are we downgrading our prior? Like, Tyler, let's say the Chiefs lose their first game. I don't even know who it is off the top of my head, but when we're doing the playbook the next week, are we really going to downgrade them? I just don't think we are.
Not even a little bit spread.
But I think we will take a lot from that first game when we're adjusting our power rankings. And of course, if you want those power rankings, you want access to the NFL playbook, and you're not a member already, use that promo code NFL23. Become a member at RunPureSports.com. You'll get access to the NFL playbook where I do score projections. Tyler gives you the individual player props for the game. We do a write-up for the game. So there's a DFS playbook that you'll have access to, and that's going to give you, hey, this is how we're approaching the DFS slate. We do it from the betting perspective, right? Because a lot of times, even though they do correlate, sometimes they don't, right? Tyler, we might like an over, but we don't like him in DFS because where he's priced and the people are in the range, but we do think he goes over that number. So in our betting playbook, we go ahead and approach that from the player prop perspective, which isn't all. Sometimes it's synonymous with the DFS, but sometimes it's not. And then, of course, you're going to get access to JJ's plays. And JJ not only does NFL, and one thing, JJ, we got to give you credit for is just finding the action on those Sunday night games and those standalone games that are tough to find. You did a fantastic job last year of really making those enjoyable for me because sometimes I lay off those games. And my idea would be, hey, would I bet this if it was on at Sunday at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. for you guys? I probably wouldn't have, right, if I had 8 other options. But you did a great job using the same game parlays, sometimes messing with the numbers a little bit, right? But to make those primetime games profitable. So you'll get access to JJ's plays there. And, of course, JJ's college football. JJ, we've been talking about the AFC West the whole time, but give me a little insight here into how you're feeling about college football. Of course, week 0, right, about 17 days away here. Are you excited to start betting some college football this season? Because that's something you've done well in over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I tend to take things relatively easy the first few weeks from a betting perspective in college football. Like even the guys that have been members here for a while or even follow me on Twitter for years. Typically, I max out at like 3 games I'll bet for the first few Saturdays, maybe 4. I just feel like a lot of people are leveraging the same data, which is Phil Steele's books, which is fine. But like for me, earlier in the year is more of a litmus test of sorts, eye test of sorts. I'm trying to really see, have these recruits really mattered this early in the year, and how much of a difference are some of these other teams going? You have a lot of teams in the last year in certain conferences this year. It's going to be a lot of musical chairs with certain teams. The Pac-12 is basically going to be consolidated. A lot of things just to consider, but early in the year, always take it slower. Ironically enough, on the DFS end, I typically play some of my heaviest volume to start the year because I feel like the players themselves are a lot more predictable earlier in the year. And you can find things that people just don't see, again, early in the year. And once things start to round out, to me, as the season rounds out, DFS gets harder and betting the sport gets a little easier. So just kind of playing that pendulum swing every year. And this year should be no different.
Right. And that's just the football betting information you get. If you become a member of Run Pure Sports, you can get access to SaberSim, of course, all the DFS scores. And there's multiple sports, right? Football's not the only sport going on then. You'll still get access to all the baseball plays. The soccer's running hot and heavy, and we've been winning on there. And hey, even if you're down for a niche sport, even if we don't cap it, right, JJ, there's a Discord where you can talk to other members who can be watching that sport. And, you know, just because Tyler doesn't have a plan, it doesn't mean you can't find a winner in that Discord. So all in all, it's the best value in sports gambling information and daily fantasy information. And that's right. You can use that promo code NFL23. It's not 23% off just for the season. It's going to be 23% off for the life of your membership. I don't even know if we've ever run a promotion like that, but I think that if you're not a member, it's a great time to get involved. And if you're already a member, we're happy to have you. And of course, take advantage of those resources. Add us to the Discord. We're not always in there as much as the DFS guys are, but we'd always love to answer a question. And I bring up the example, right? Hey, you got a 4-point edge on this game, but you made it a lean, and then you had a 1-point edge on the other game, but you made it a bet that we gave out to everyone. Why did you do that? And of course, sometimes, right, Tyler, we talk about it, but we may not have let them know. So you can add us, you can ask us that. Or just leverage the information, right? You can use my projections and add them into your own projections. But you're going to get those score projections nice and early. And I know that can help you making your own projections. So there's plenty of ways you can take advantage of the membership. And we do hope that you become a member. Tyler, is there anything I left out on the AFC West before we let JJ take us out of here?
Not on the AFC West, but just to add on to the promo you just said, use that promo code, the NFL23, to lock in that 23% off for life. I mean, we didn't even talk about the NBA that's going to be right on the heels of this NFL season, starting October 27th. We crushed it on that NBA playbook last year, Spread. You lock in that promo code, we'll pay for that subscription alone just in our NBA playbook. That's not counting JJ's baseball and college football plays, his NFL plays. Joey Work will be in there with MMA and MLB. We got a ton of other guys posting bets. So you just got to lock in that promo code while it's here. It's the best one we've had yet. Yeah,
you lock it in and you get, some people say March Madness is the best time of year. I'll be honest, there's about 2 or 3 weeks at the end of October into November that are very often the best time.
When I actually start watching baseball.
Yeah.
JJ, you don't know how many times I place your bets and don't even look at the scores. Just see if I have more money in my account when I log in the next day.
Yeah, because that last stretch of October, right? I mean, just to kind of round out the show now, that last stretch of October, you have NBA starting up, you have MLB playoffs into the World Series, you have NFL, you have college that's been underway for 7-8 weeks already, so you have a good handle on teams. NFL, you're in week 5 or 6. You're starting to get a good handle on teams. There's just a lot to talk about. Hockey is somewhere in that neighborhood. NBA, we already mentioned. Just a lot, it's the plethora of sports, that 2 to 3 week area. So yeah. And again, you sign up now, you sign up for the next few weeks, you'll get that code throughout. So you'll get those discounts throughout. So yeah, head aboard. We're expecting a big year. Obviously we brought in Bryce for DFS. We brought in JBC for DFS. This is going to help tremendously with the way you guys build teams, especially in the big sports. NFL, college football are big sports every week. Big prize pools every week. So yeah, we look forward to it all.
All right. Well, there you have it. There's the reasons to join Run Pure Sports. But JJ, get us out of here. Some final thoughts on the AFC West, and then maybe some words of wisdom for the people. It doesn't have to be gambling related. Maybe it's just about life.
Sure. So at minimum, love the Denver Broncos win total over 8.5. I love the Chargers win total under 9.5, especially at a nice dog price, which I feel like has been wrongly steamed into that number. And separate from that, I guess we could leave in the words of who said this? I think Jerry Rice. Do what folks won't do today, so that tomorrow you can do what folks can't do. On that note, I hope everybody runs pure.